And in other headlines, world leaders are gathering at the United Nations headquarters in New York this week for high-level meetings and speeches, including one set to be delivered by President Trump on Tuesday. Scripps News national correspondent Katia Tubman is live in New York with the latest on this. Katia, what are we expecting going into this busy week?
Well, good afternoon, Maritza. We are expecting a lot. It's a big week here at the United Nations, and it's this year marks the 80th annual General Assembly meeting, and we're expecting a lot of eyes and attention on the U.S., especially as global leaders are gathering here to learn what's next for ongoing conflicts and the future of the UN. Amid persisting conflicts, worsening crises, and violent unrest, a call to world leaders better together. That is a theme global leaders are meeting under as they gather at the United Nations headquarters in New York for high-level meetings this week. And all eyes will be on the U.S., the UN's most prominent member, which has pulled back to put America's interests first. Richard Gowen is the UN director for the International Crisis Group.
Everyone will be listening to see if President Trump does offer some olive branches, if he does say that he thinks that the UN is still useful, or whether he makes it very clear that actually in the America First worldview, the UN comes last.
So help me God.
Since Donald Trump began his second term in January, his administration cutting $1 billion from UN programs, threatening further cuts for peacekeeping missions, withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council, and pulling out of the World Health Organization.
There's just a lot of concern around the UN at the moment that if the US doesn't engage, if the US isn't going to show leadership in the UN, then the organization is going to struggle to deal with, a mounting range of problems on the world stage, whether it's wars or global problems like climate change.
A priority for the U.S. at the UN, ending global conflicts. In Haiti, the U.S. is seeking support from the United Nations for a new task force to take on the paramilitary gangs who've taken over much of the country. And in Ukraine and Gaza, ending years-long wars that have led to humanitarian emergencies. But Gowen says he doesn't expect this week to move the needle much.
I don't think we're going to see huge political breakthroughs over Gaza or Ukraine at this General Assembly meeting. It's actually possible that diplomatic arguments around Gaza may escalate during the big UN week. There will be small steps forward, I'm sure, in dealing with some of the problems that the UN is juggling, but it just doesn't feel like a year where anyone is coming to make grand diplomatic bargains.
But the world will be watching nonetheless. Just days before this week's high-level meetings, Maritza, Congress confirmed President Trump's pick for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz. Now, world leaders will be watching to see how he carries out the administration's America First position amid growing calls for international cooperation. Maritza?
Yeah, and Katie, a lot of attention will be, of course, on President Trump as he makes his big return to the UN tomorrow. But what other leaders are you going to be looking out for?
Well, Maritza, for the first time in nearly 60 years, a Syrian president is here at the UN General Assembly. Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara is here hoping to deepen ties between Arab countries and the West. He met with President Trump earlier this year in May and is hoping this week to meet with President Trump again, he says, to restore and to rebuild that relationship. Maritza?
All right, Scripps News national correspondent Katia Tubman live in New York for us. Thanks so much, Katia.